So I was on the Bible app and I found a devotional the other day, and it really gave me a new perspective of the glory of God and how we must put it on display. The name of the plan was God's Glory and Your Purpose, and it really digs deep to show more than just what lies on the surface. Because we all know that we're supposed to lift God up and share the gospel. And yes, that's the simplicity of it all, but shouldn't we be more thoughtful? So let's take this concept and split it up so it can be demonstrated into 5 main points, beginning with why we were created. You see, it begins with saying that God created us for His glory, meaning it's never ours to have. Don't believe that deceptive story, but also notice that we can't increase God's glory. It's actually impossible and couldn't happen because the Creator is above creation, so the sailor cannot speak for his captain. Instead, we're called to display and really just be a reflection, because mankind cannot redeem, we just point them in the right direction. So our goal is our reliance on the Lord, because it shows our trustworthiness and dependability. Because if we rely on anything in addition to Him, we have 2 masters and have lost credibility. We finished the first point with a quote from John Piper, probably his most popular sentence, that God is most glorified in you when you are most satisfied in His presence. Secondly, let's talk about our failure to live up and how we are all flawed. Notice Romans 3:23 says, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But fall short in this verse can be replaced with the word lack, so it gives us a new perspective after listening to the playback. Because when we replace the word and reread the verse, it says we lack the glory of God. Can we not sound any worse? But notice that this does not mean that we are not as glorious as we should be, but it rather relates to another concept found in Romans 1:23. It says, and I quote, that they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings. So did you catch what this verse says? Could your ears hear this any clearer? The image we're exchanging for God is the image in the mirror. We were made to love, satisfy, and reflect the glory of God, not exchange it for things within. And when we actually do understand the glory of God, it reveals to us the seriousness of our sin. But don't be consumed with your failure and dwell on your past mistakes, because His grace runs deep and we have big things at stake. This then leads into point 3 and how Jesus came down to earth, which already gives us an idea of how God shows us our worth, that His intentional timing was perfect. There is no coincidence or maybe that many infants had become kings, but here a king became a baby that would grow up and live a life that none of us had done, a life without sin. The redemption plan had begun, that after 33 years when He was crucified and died in our spot, not only did He rescue and save us from our failure, but it also brought a magnificent scene to this beautiful story, that at that very moment God displayed the apex of His glory. Paul writes in Romans that Jesus condemned sin in the flesh. That's chapter 8, verse 3. But condemned means at fault. And since Jesus was innocent, that sin was from you and me. But out of God's love for me, the punishment was put on Jesus. So while on earth experienced damnation, and us sinners have it made, because God offers freedom through forgiveness and justification. Which leads into point 4 and how we live in view of that salvation. So we turn to the Bible, but here it carries a bad connotation, because many people view it as a bunch of laws crammed into one big book, but through Jesus, that's not how the rescued life should look. Because the new covenant was established when our Savior came to free us, resulting in our main priority of putting all our trust in Jesus. Therefore, treasure the glory of the Lord, and you will increasingly be conformed to His likeness, because there's no better opportunity to partake in showing off His brightness. So we trust in Him, and as a result give God pleasure, because we will become like whatever we worship or treasure. So we strive to worship Christ and express our gratitude, and it will change us and give us a perspective that is renewed, because when our eyes can see the glory of God in and through the works of His Son, it will change you into the person that loves His glory and all that God has done. The plan ends with the consummation of all things, and now it will have been long awaited when God succeeds in His purpose for which the world was created. Just imagine the beauty of it all. The glorious scene when God's holy word comes true, starting in Romans 8:19. It says, creation is waiting eagerly for that future day when God will reveal who His children really are, meaning all creation. So the earth, the planets, the universe, and each and every star, they will yearn for the day that glory is revealed to God's children. referring to eternity. Habakkuk says the earth will be filled with the glory of the Lord as the water covers the sea. But notice how in Romans, Paul says creation. So the moon, stars, and sun will be free from bondage and corruption. That's Romans 8:21. I say all that to say that the remarkable creations of God are secondary to the human beings created in His image, which are primary. He says we are going to be glorified because to Jesus we will be conformed, and as a result, creation will climactically be transformed as a place that is suitable for us, His children. But until then, Jesus says we won't have it easy. In fact, He says, I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So don't grow weary in trusting Jesus and day by day being conformed to His glorious life of love.